In this video, we talk about how to coach for team culture, what to do to get the right behaviours from your athletes, and how to hold them accountable. I'm James Paris, and I post videos about how to coach sports. If you're new here, then make sure you click that subscribe button. Okay, let's crack on with it. I've heard you said that team culture is all about the behaviour of athletes. Can you explain that a little for us?
Yeah, so culture is thrown around a lot. Business have used it for many, many years. It's really simple. And this is another principle, is that I will massively simplify things, not to the point where it's not useful, but to the point where it is useful. So when we talk about culture, it's just the collective behaviors of the group. It's just what's accepted around here. And culture is seen in every single thing that an athlete and a team does. So it's seen on a rowing crew when they take their first stroke and the boat flops to bow side and they carry on anyway. That's culture. That basically tells you what?
Well, they're not focusing on what they need to do. They're not all aligned together, and they don't care.
Yeah, it tells you, because they rode on, it tells you it gives you some technical cues first, but it tells you that they're willing to accept a crappy standard. Yep. It tells you that they're willing to accept poor standards. So if me as a coach, I reinforce that behavior by doing nothing about it. So if I say to them, hey guys, just stop for a second. Hey, what happened on that second stroke? Oh, yeah, it flopped to bow side. Okay, how come you kept rowing? Oh, and it's not because they're maliciously trying to accept the lower standard. They often just don't know. And he said, hey, well, do you think it's possible if we really tune in and finish our stroke off and take it seriously? Imagine that you're starting a race at the Olympics, or imagine that you're about to start, we're preparing for a race at the moment. That's the start of the race. The start is really important. You know, in quantum physics, the first, 15% of anything defines the remaining 85%, right? In total quality management, William Edward Deming completely redefined the whole Japanese car industry by making the quality of the little components into the car, a higher level of tolerance, or lower tolerance, if you like, for the actual componentry. And so it was a lot more precise, and the level of precision and how the parts work together, the total collective of that was a more reliable car. And so it works the same in sports. So there are some general rules that work in life, and they absolutely apply to sports. So that's culture, and you see it all the time. You see it in the time that they turn up at practice and what happens to the guy who's late. If he turns up late, does anything get said to him? Do we press on anyway? So I had a guy turn up late the other day, and I said, fellas, get the boat on the water. And, we had the boat on the water, it was ready to go, and it was really clear that we're not waiting for anyone. Like, you're either on time or we're going to find someone else who's going to sit that seat, because we're together for a month in this little program I'm doing at the moment. And so then we have a chat to him and say, hey, look, just make sure you're on time next time. We're not upset at you, but just don't let it happen again. And it doesn't go unaddressed. And so trying to start on the right foot is a really important, principle, if you like, in trying to build a better culture. So it's always interesting. Yeah. I mean, you'll find it all the time, right? Like, for example, when you go and visit a new team and you go and look at their locker room, if it's a mess, I guarantee they're not performing that well on the field either, and it's not because someone else will clean the locker room. Like, you find that the better teams tend to take more care around everything that they do. And that's culture. Culture is basically all things. It's how you talk to each other. It's your way of communicating. It's the words that you choose to use. It's standing out from, whatever behavior that you do. If, for example, you behave a certain way, let's say that your coach gives you some feedback and you respond negatively to that, and no one says anything to you. That says something about your culture, right? And it's not a positive thing. Whereas if you respond negatively and someone actually comes over and says to you, oh, hey, look, when the coach talks to you, first thing you do is you actually thank them for the feedback, and then you work hard to make sure they don't have to say it to you again. So culture is everything. Yeah.
So, but it also, for a coach, in order to kind of shape culture, you have to keep people accountable. And you touched on this in the previous answer. So
yeah.
How do you go about doing that?
So accountability goes back to, this is all about a system, right? So it's not just about bolting on accountability to your program. This is all systems thinking. And so the whole point is that you come back to that philosophy of involvement, ownership, accountability. So a lot of coaches try to drive accountability, but they give them no ownership because they've got no involvement. So if I say to you guys, and that's what I say to my crew, I say, so fellas, you tell me, what time do you want to turn up to practice this week? I mean, it really doesn't make any difference to me when we train. And so they say, oh, look, we're going to get on the water at 5 a.m. I say, great, what time are you going to be there? 4:45, fantastic. What are you going to do when you get there? All right, we get the boat ready, we get organized, and we hit the water at 5 or thereabouts. Well, if that happens or not, it's more likely to happen if, and I can hold them accountable, say, hey, fellas, why are we late? Why is it 5:10 now? Because you told me that you were going to be on the water at 5. So what are you going to do about it to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And accountability is not punishment. That's accountability, just being willing to confront the issue, right? And most people think about accountability as punishment. There's no punishment in what I just said at all. Often it's just a reminder. It's often just literally noticing that you saw the behavior and in your eyes, it wasn't acceptable. And in their eyes, they'd agreed that we were going to do something different and we didn't stick to it. And it's the same as, if we say we're going to rate 22, 24, 26, 28, we don't hold our rating and they blame it on someone else. It's everyone's job to hold those ratings and speeds. It's part of what's demanded from us as being a good supporter and a good team member. But again, from my perspective, it all comes back to getting your athletes involved first, creating a framework that everybody agrees to initially, because often you find coaches try to hold their players accountable to something that they never really bought into or agreed with in the first place. Okay, the more that someone feels involved, the more sense of ownership they have, then you can start to really help them be accountable. When you get phenomenally strong cultures, you actually end up getting the team members that hold themselves accountable. And the coach just literally oversees that it happens. But that's something that I've noticed is one of the big differences between, really, really sustainably successful teams and teams that don't quite get there.